Hey, Mo, what's good, y'all? Been needing to warm things back up on this channel for sure. And things have been popping up kind of across the scene that have inspired me to definitely get this thing fired up. I have been working. I've been working for sure. Thought experiments, getting into some deeper ideas about life, reality, existence as we know it, trying to see what this is, right? Because there's interesting things. I mean, life is super duper interesting. And there are people, researchers, influencers, personalities looking into things, questioning things, right? I'm big on that. I love it, love it, love it. Um, the level of creativity, energy that goes into it, asking questions, getting stonewalled by so-called experts and whatnot. Um, Very interesting to see where this stuff is going. And I've been reading what would be called conspiracy theory, higher consciousness, reality, spirituality, all kind of different concepts. I'm gonna go to my notes because I got a list of notes here, and I wanted to. I've been wanting to drop content on this channel, but relative to kind of conspiracy ish, truther community, truthertainment kind of vibes, right? Um, it's ramped up obviously because a lot has gone on in the last 3.5 years where obviously predatory people coming for other people's freedoms, trying to box people into some kind of authoritarian governance kind of situation. It's been at our doorstep more so than ever, I would say, in the most overt kind of way. Yeah, if we want to talk about some type of a research truth community, there's been a recent development with some people that I highly respect in this sort of arena, in this space. And I want to address that. And it's inspired me to kind of circle back to this channel. I have sort of my unique perspective, and that's another reason why I definitely needed to tap in on this, right? Because perspectives, ideas, concepts being pushed for me, I was like, well, I want to approach it from the standpoint of thought experiments, right? And I'll show you why I arrived at that title and just that as a way to look at and go into sort of these what could be considered truth or research concepts, right? Because we got to really root this into something that we can all stand on and look at and understand. Because if there is a community of people that are understanding that there's unfortunately a dualistic reality that we live in and that we share, there are people with certain agendas of control, controlling resources, controlling other people, using other people as a resource. So we got to look at that. We got to be honest about that. But at the same time, not allow our own weaknesses to work in their favor, right? We got to be honest about that. Like if we're being lied to, then we want to know what's going on. If we're being deceived, we need to know what's going on. But we can't let our internal conflicts and issues cloud our judgment, cloud our ability, cloud our discernment, right? And just a lot of things like from content creators, I got to really just break it down and just really come off the heart with it because I really wanted to do more. Because again, I'm a videographer, motion graphic designer. I do that for a living. I'm building my own firm, doing this kind of work. So I've been active on YouTube for years, interacting with different content creators, doing my own content, different kind of algorithms, different kind of scenes. For moving forward, I really want to make content that is more produced, has more polished on it, that's more akin to what I do for my clients. Um, Really shifting kind of what algorithms that I bother to put energy into. And two things that are big for me is sort of this exploration of life, of reality, sort of like what is the truth of life, reality, searching for that. So you could say truth or community, research community, something I've always been big on. And I'm big on health and fitness. And I mean, as of the last 3.5, almost 4 years, we see where that all comes together. So I'm essentially doing two channels where it's thought experiments, exploring ideas, and my other channel, AM1 Lifestyle, where I'm really tying together the health, fitness, diet elements, like practical things we can go do, and just weaving that together. So just kind of breaking that down because solutions orientation, so being solutions oriented. Where that's where the rubber really meets the road. Like, what can we do? What can we not do? What can we, steps we can easily take versus just, I don't know, reading different books or following different influencers or checking out different people's ideas. Like that's where I'm going with it. So just to kind of lay that foundation. So we have different influencers. There's different people that I check out, different people's information. And I love it. I love having my mind blown with different ideas and being like, wow, I've never thought that. So here's what it is. I'm gonna go to my notes and run it down like this because then I'm gonna come back and do a specific stream addressing a conflict right now in this sort of research truth community. And these are with some people that I've interacted with and I have great respect for. And I think kind of what's going on right now is a huge loss for the community overall. And I want to see what I can do to pose some kind of perspectives on that and hopefully something kind of solutions oriented. But I want to lay the foundation of what I'm doing here and sort of my perspective relative to this concept of thought experiments and how to apply at least this thought process for me. And maybe other people can take a page out of my book. Obviously, I'm not some big name. This is a new channel, but I have been active with some people for years for whatever that's worth, for whatever it's worth. And, I've been able to speak with some big name people and interact with some big name people, so to speak. So here's what it is. Again, my history with all this stuff, just looking at the idea of, and I just made a list of these ideas: hidden history, false timeline, nature of reality, cosmology, secret government, spirituality, hidden technology, occultism, mysticism, religion, all of these different ideas, all of these different ideas. I've looked into this kind of stuff, extrasensory perception, remote viewing. I've looked into this stuff for the greater portion of my life. Out of body experiences. I've had experiences with some of these things, like directly myself. So I've always been fascinated with this, read a lot of books on this. And then, of course, as the internet developed and realized, you can have so much information, articles, just taking in so much information from people across the country, across the world. What is this community talking about? Well, it's exactly the things I just listed. I know there's a time delay, but literally that's kind of what it is. Like people that are trying to peel back the layers on all of these different things. So, I mean, you could even throw aliens, whatever, just everything in there, all of the mysteries of the unknown, that big book series from back in the day, just those kind of things. But a lot of it is relative to, controllers, elite families, Illuminati, whatever, politics, who's controlling things, pulling strings behind the scenes. So all of these things kind of overlap and tie together. People asking different questions about all of these sort of hidden, more occult, mystic kind of things. Like, again, I could run down the list, but I won't. I think it's pretty clear. So where I'm at with it is this. People go seek information from different sources, have different strategies of how they approach it. And I think that's great. But then we get into this thing where if you talk online, you have a certain type of charisma, and then you start building communities, individual personal egos can kind of get in the mix, right? Because everybody has a certain sense of pride in the work they do. And for whatever reason, traumas, impacts in people's lives, like people can kind of let their ego get the better of them. And if you're talking about sort of a truth community, we're all trying to work together to figure out what's going on. And then we arrive at ideas like somebody's hiding things from us, somebody's manipulating the game. If we're on team, figure out what's going on, then we want to work together as a team more so than compete with each other and waste energy competing with each other. Meanwhile, there's somebody else on a whole other team working against us. And if we're honest about it, and going to my notes, we understand we have common enemies, common threats, that there are predatory people. Some people call them elites. I call them elitists. And these people are trying to control resources and use us as a resource for their advantage. They are in the practice of obscuring information, fostering ignorance, and weaponizing that ignorance, apathy, and essentially weaponization of everything, especially your own vices, your own ego, your need for external gratification and validation. And I mean, that's a thin line, right? Because obviously there's something to be said about taking pride in your work, taking pride in your actions. But when it gets to the point where you're in your own shit so much. You're feeling yourself too much to the point where you let that work against yourself or against the greater goal that you're trying to reach. Because again, if we understand common enemies, common threats, predatory people, I hate to be dualistic about it, but I think it is what it is. There is a predator prey kind of energy in this reality, right? If we're going to play the spiritual beings having a human experience kind of thing, as I have in my notes right here, spiritual beings, human experience, some type of shared objective reality that we all can interact with, and we can see, oh, that thing is that thing. I'm here, they're there, we're experiencing this. This is what it is. Then there's the things we don't know relative to, hey, we all live in this world. So that's when we start asking questions and we start realizing, hey, myself and this person next to me, we're asking what's going on. There's someone over there. That person may know something we don't know, and they may be using that against us, right? So now there's the idea of deception, manipulation. That's when we get into this whole predator prey concept. And if you allow people to hoard certain information, use that to manipulate resources, and those people gain a certain level of resources, then they style themselves as elite and better than you. Now we got an interesting kind of situation, right? And I think what we're experiencing in this life overall is that, but on super duper steroids, 10,000, 10 million x'd, right? So just to give a outline of the predicament we're in. So again, if we're on the side of the people that are like, hey, we're in some weird situation where we wake up, we're conscious, we're aware that we're aware. We wake up in what appear to be these meat suit body things, and the consciousness that we are piloting these things, and we interact with what appears to be some solid physical reality, right? This is just getting to the baseline concepts of it. Treat it as a thought experiment, but I'm pretty sure what I'm describing, I think you guys are experiencing it just like me. That this is my experience. I wake up in the morning, feel groggy, come into some sharper level of consciousness, and I'm like, oh, I'm here again. And here's my hands, and I can control this, and I can will this thing around and move this whole body around, right? And then, okay, maybe I got to feed this thing. I have some weird sensation at a certain part of my body. And I realized after, 45 plus years, that means, oh, put something in this opening in my head, right? I'm just breaking this down to the simple ideas of what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I think you guys are experiencing it the same way. Just a thought experiment. We'll see. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if that's kind of how you're feeling it too, right? And it seems ridiculous what I'm saying, but I'm only saying it because that's what I'm experiencing. I think you're experiencing that. I can ask you about it. I can confirm it with you, and we can, ask 2 people, 3 people, 10 million people if that's what they're experiencing. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm aware that I'm aware, and I'm piloting the body, and I can move it around, and I can make certain decisions. Then there's the things that we don't know, like what is reality overall? What is this whole environment? What is going on here? What happened 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago? What is the origin of all this? How did this body thing that I pilot come about? I know my parents birthed me, but what does that even mean? What is the whole concept of the genetic DNA material that even builds these bodies, right? That we're getting into like existential questions. Now we can get into levels of speculation about that, but then of course that opens up the realms into uh religious concepts that are binding people into belief systems about origin and how people came about, or the idea that miraculously out of nothing all of this came about in some type of cosmic something out of nothing big bang theory kind of concept that I don't know, exploded everything into existence, physicality, consciousness, everything, right? And I'm just posing this because these ideas all exist, they're all out there. Or of course there's the idea that there's some kind of ultimate God being that is a creator being that created people and created the universe and put us here and set us up with a certain set of rules. Some of this stuff, there's scriptural doctrine books built on this stuff. And there's some people who will swear by that and tell you that's exactly what reality is. But now we're getting into the whole murky realms of belief systems. Who forged that belief system? Who pushed that belief system on other people? How long has that been established? Has it been established as actual fact? Does it actually serve people in the best way possible? Are they are their belief systems being pushed that limit even greater possibilities or potential of human existence? That's kind of where I'm going with this whole thought experiment thing. Like, really being able to identify what's going on and what's being used against us to hold us back. Because again, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do we agree that there are predatory people styling themselves as elitists who will use everything against us? They'll use religion, they'll use race, they'll use gender, phenotype, every possible thing, what diet choices you make. They're literally trying to weaponize everything against us, and then they'll let you weaponize your own ego again, your own need for external gratification and validation. They'll literally weaponize everything against you. They'll weaponize your love for your children and your family against you, as we saw in the past few years, using fear to totally manipulate populations of people, using political choices to weaponize different people. You have to be on camp red or blue. You have to be on this side of the aisle. You have to fight each other. Meanwhile, don't fight the very predatory elitist people who say, sure, keep fighting over what whichever ruler we choose to rule over you, give you the impression that you get to elect this person every 4 years. I'm talking to the US, obviously, but similar governance systems work around the world in the same way or a similar way. But just giving you the illusion of some kind of choice, right? So let me know if I'm getting any of this wrong, because this is not something I got to stand on so hard and got to be some crazy big ego thing. Just thought experiments. But I think what I'm describing is something that is objectively true. We all know that this is what's going on, right? There are the predatory elitist types who are manipulating how we perceive reality, keeping us boxed into this concept of living that ultimately just turns us into a labor farm for their benefit. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, it sounds bleak and it kind of is, but I mean, on a higher level, spiritual beings having human experience, maybe it's part of some kind of cosmic learning school game space kind of thing. And I've heard all of these ideas be proposed, and I think they're all super duper interesting and it makes perfect sense. But from a nuts and bolts kind of situation, if we're going to talk truth community, truther community, then it's like, oh, who's trying to manipulate us and what political thing is happening next and the next thing. Like, I know people that really bite on this stuff and chew on this stuff and get deep into the memes and this, that, and the third. And I know I'm guilty of it myself, but it's kind of like, what's the next level of the game with that? One, like from an actionable standpoint, I'm very interested in that. But at the same time, if we or people are moving as some kind of a truth research community, again, fighting amongst each other based on, hey, here's what I think, or here's my ideas, my interpretations, right? And I'm gonna get into this later too, because there's the idea of like your concepts, your ideas, abstractions, interpretations, data points, data gathering, correlative data. This is all interesting. And it becomes a matter of, does anyone need to force their idea on anyone else? Does it have to be sort of like a push to where this other person, influencer, teacher, does it even have to be teaching? Like right now, I'm talking about ideas that are just general, right? But I'm giving my perspective on things, and everybody's free to say, I don't quite see it like that. And I'll be like, well, if you want to discuss it to a degree where, like I don't want to make it into a thing where it's like a conflict where, oh, you're trying to change my mind. So now I have to stand on what I'm saying and fight you. More so than it's like, well, tell me what you think, lay it all out. I'll tell you what I think and lay it out. And I think a better approach is, what do we actually all agree on? Right? Let's go there versus the disagreements. And where I disagree, you need to kind of like shift your thinking to what I think. And then it's like some weird, like energy dynamic kind of thing when theoretically everybody's trying to arrive at some kind of truth concept, right? And for there even to be the need to discuss it in some sort of way implies that the truth isn't obvious, right? Because if it was, it's a sunny day, the sky's blue, look up in the sky, what color is the sky? Sky's blue. But if there was some way to obscure that in a way where somebody could have theoretically a different perspective, I don't know, you're on the other side of town and it's cloudy, it looks different. I don't know. I'm just trying to use an analogy. In other words, and I don't want to get into it because I kind of want to save it for the later discussion. Yeah, they create infighting. I don't want the infighting. I want just the ideas, and that's where I'm at. Like I don't have to. I don't know. I mean, who am I? I'm a nobody with this stuff, right? So I don't have like a, especially if you're making a livelihood as sort of this personality influencer teacher. Because then if you're teaching something, you're gonna have to be able to anchor it in something that is objective. And there's the subjective, there's the objective reality, subjective experience of the person. So we got to talk about empirical evidence that everybody can either readily perceive or detect, or within reason arrive at, okay, that's a real actual thing, versus some abstraction that someone comes up with based on maybe some feeling, maybe some intuition, just other things that aren't readily empirically provable or easy to arrive at. So different people's style of assessing and determining information can arrive at certain conflicts based on their approach, right? And again, I'll get into that later because it's directly relative to this whole thing with these two content creators that's kind of inspired me to circle back to this channel. The infighting is a must when you're a married man like myself. Just about every week, a new fight in the house. Well, yeah, that's a little bit different. But that's actually not a good thing either, right? Because if you're a married man, what the whole purpose of being married is to, like, I guess, better yourself, better it for your uh spouse and better it for your family, right? But then meanwhile, clearly there's somebody who's trying to tax you, tax your time and your labor and your existence. So the infighting makes it harder for you to deal with the fact that somebody's trying to tax your existence. So I don't know. I'm not married, so I can imagine what that's like, and I refuse to allow such a situation. I'm listening, brother. I know this is going to be good. I appreciate everybody who pulled up on me. I know the algorithm is, kind of shut down over here. I haven't been busy over here, but I've been busy on another channel because, like I said before, I've been shifting more to a solutions-oriented kind of mindset. And I'm gonna go back to my notes and kind of tell you guys where I'm at with this. Let me go grab this link so I can also show you what I'm working on. Because I'm into the deeper thinking, the different ideas, the sort of esoteric ideas, the occult ideas, and questioning reality, right? But if we're going to talk spiritual being having human experience, then we got to get to the nuts and bolts of meat suit body situation, right? And how it interfaces with reality. If we're going to talk about spiritual being, human experience inside of even some type of simulation or some kind of reality that God made, or if you want to hear about my theory of everything, I think we're in some kind of collective creation. We'll get into that way later. But whatever it is, you're piloting some kind of body. And this body is made up of essentially water that's interfacing with certain chemicals. And depending on the chemical makeup of your body, it's going to determine how well this body functions relative to you interfacing with this reality, simulation, whatever. In other words, what I'm just saying is a fancy way of, if you pollute your body that is made out of this chemistry and the chemistry is off, your perception is going to be off, because how can you possibly interface with your thoughts, your brain, whatever? How does the spiritual being inside, so to speak, who's piloting it, interface with the body that interfaces with the reality? If you're eating shitty food and clogging it up, how can you know that you're actually operating properly as the true being you are? How's the true being interfacing properly if the interface is corrupted with toxic chemicals, toxic chemistry, toxic electromagnetic balance? Because the chemistry is directly relative to like an electromagnetic balance. These are my ideas, just thought experiments. Just as before, we don't have to jump out of the window on this. It's just thought experiments. You see the whole point of how I say that, right? Like, I give you these ideas, kind of lofty sounding stuff, woo woo, right? But I think it makes sense. But maybe you guys see it in a different way. But at least I'll bring it back and just say, hey, just a thought experiment, which is the whole point. It makes it to where I can say it and then almost in a comical way kind of fall back and be like, hey, it's just a thought experiment. You don't have to go off the deep end, because there are some people who subscribe to certain religious belief systems and be like, no, Jesus Christ is God and faith and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, maybe, but maybe not. But no, that is the way. It's like, well, how do you know for sure? And I've just used that as an example because I've experienced that many, many times. And we just say, well, I mean, there's a whole lot we don't know. And I think the unwillingness to simply say, yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure, creates a whole lot of conflict. I think that creates a whole lot of conflict. Yeah, it is been said, we are what we eat. So if we think about the chemistry, the chemical makeup of the properties of what we eat, and if that's helping to build our body, our vehicle, our vessel, how can you say you're experiencing reality properly if you're polluting the vessel, the very eyes and ears you see and hear through? How can you even talk about the reality, the simulation, if you're not even eating right? So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Let me get you this link to where you guys can see if you guys want to support me over on this channel. So it's going to be Thought Experiments, and it's going to be AM1 Lifestyle. Thought Experiments, we're getting into the lofty, woo-woo, cool stuff, right? The fun stuff over there. And I'm going to circle back to this as well, because we can talk truther stuff. We can talk higher consciousness. We can talk simulation. We can talk all this good stuff. Illuminati, blah, blah, blah. The families are controlling us. They're turning the frogs gay. Hidden technology, the Vimanas, secret government, cosmology, nature of reality, resets, all this stuff. I love it. It's super interesting. But wait a minute. What are you putting in your mouth every day? What are you putting in your eyes and ears every day? And what action are you taking to make sure it is working to your advantage? Damn, it's hot. Working to your advantage, to your best benefit, for the best quality of life you can have, so you can be of benefit to yourself and to the people around you. Because we do, I think, just a thought experiment, but I think we do acknowledge that we have a common enemy, common threat, predatory people styling themselves as some kind of elitist who are trying to weaponize everything against us, including our own vices, our own ego, our need for external gratification and validation. I think if we agree that that's the case, then we need to be that much more diligent and vigilant about paying attention to what we're doing, or they're going to use that against us. And if you have children, that's all the more reason to do it. And if there's going to be some kind of research, truther community, the infighting will only serve to ruin the potential of what we can be doing with free platforms like YouTube and everything else online, where we can aggregate and share information. So it's kind of like, hey, people, get your shit together, get off feeling yourself too much. Let's share ideas and let's present them as thought experiments. And let's just keep it moving. Let me go back to my notes. Let me go back to my notes, because I'm getting a little passionate with it, but let me bring it down. Or maybe I don't bring it down, because I really just wanted to come off the heart with this, because this is not even really what I wanted to do with this. I want to do more uploads on Thought Experiments, but I've been over on AM1 Lifestyle. Go hit subscribe over there, please, because that's my health and fitness channel. I'm 45 years old. I'm in decent shape. I'm always experimenting with diet strategies. I work out like a madman. I really love health, fitness. Been a big fan of that. And I am a videographer, motion graphic designer. Very passionate about that. I love that. Created a very decent career for myself, very successful career for myself doing that kind of work. And I want to tie together my passions of visual media, doing the video, motion graphic stuff, with my passion for health and fitness. So hence we have AM1 Lifestyle, just to show you kind of stuff I do relative to health and just learning about how my body works, because it truly is, in my opinion, just a thought experiment. That's where the rubber meets the road. Because here's what it is. And this is a perfect segue into this next segment of my notes. Because we can talk about research, we can talk about truth. And then what? Because we're going to have to get into the actual action, the self-improvement, the self-refinement. Because we can talk about who is doing what and how they're working against us. But it's like, what are we doing to make sure that it doesn't work? Right? I mean, we don't have to beat ourselves up about it, but there's a certain point where you got to kind of be like, all right, I got to stop playing around. Let me go. There's another section of my notes. Let me see. I got out of order on my notes. Let me see. I don't need to be too formal with this because that would be upload, and I appreciate you guys rocking with me here, especially since this channel's been a little bit dormant for a minute. But I've been over there on AM1 Lifestyle, and now you guys are seeing why. Because man, I'm in such a great point in my life right now. I'm in the best time of my life right now. So it's hard for me to resonate with conflicts from just anything, really. And I live in a place, I'm surrounded by so many like, oh man, sick, sad, weak-minded, manipulated people falling prey to the ills of the predators, the elitists, the manipulators. And it's like you can grab them by the shoulders and shake them and try to tell them, but they just don't care. But I've still found a way to sort of battle and push through that and still find so much beauty and freedom in this world. And since it's kind of hard to do that with day-to-day people just walking the street, friends and family to a certain degree, then it's kind of like, let me push some of this stuff out online into the world and just offer something of benefit, hopefully. But at the very least, creative project that I'm having fun with. All right, let's see. So wait a minute. I thought I had some notes on this. Oh, so what I was saying is this. Truth community, research community. Let's talk about hidden history. Let's talk about all this occult mysticism, cool stuff. But where's the actionable things that we can do to make sure that these elitist psychopaths do not advance on their plans to pull off some kind of totalitarian tiptoe world domination scheme, right? This is old school G.I. Joe and Cobra craziness on steroids, but in the real world. Just dated myself there. G.I. Joe and Cobra in the 80s, watching plans to take over the world domination. Some kind of secret society, militant secret society planning to take over the world, and they keep going at it. But this elite special forces team of Joes, G.I. Joes, keeps thwarting their efforts, and they keep coming back, and they keep coming back. And they even, they had, the whole reptilian Cobra element, Serpentor, Globulus. Like, geez, the G.I. Joe reference is just pretty, like, way too on the nose. Just thought experiments, though. Pardon me. But here's where I'm at with this. It's important that we really get this dialed in if we're going to talk some kind of truth community, research community. Look at what's going on, not do the infighting, and then let's move to actionable solutions. A lot of this stuff is preparing yourself so that you're in a position to where you can opt out of a lot of the things they're trying to push on you, right? So if you want to talk CBDCs, if you want to talk forced shots, any kind of force, most of this stuff is predatory elitists trying to manipulate you into accepting certain things that you don't want, that they want, so they can box you into a situation where you're at the mercy of whatever they're trying to pull off, right? So the idea is understanding what's going on and actually taking action, preparing ahead so you can say, nah, I'll pass on that, versus, damn, I'm at a deficit. I'm at a, you know what I mean? I have no other choice but to say yes to this. I didn't plan ahead. I don't have enough to eat. So I have no choice but to take their UBI, right? That's what I'm interested in. That I'm interested in. Make your body vessel vehicle as healthy as possible so you don't even get sick, and you learn about the things that you're putting in your body that are making you sick. So the less people get sick, the less you need doctors, the less you need pharmaceutical drugs, right? So you collapse whole industries that don't need to be there. If people start looking at like ultra processed foods, fake foods, and say, nah, I'm just going to opt out of that, then what? Those industries have to go away. Collapse the whole industries. Like most of this stuff, we want to talk, oh, these elitists are trying to do this, that, and the third. It's like, well, most of it is like, nah, just don't do it. Don't watch their content. Don't support their products. Don't support their brands. Don't take their products, their drugs. Kids, say no to drugs. I grew up in the 80s, 90s. Dare to say no to drugs. Yes. Don't take their drugs. Don't eat their shitty food that's going to make you sick. And then you go take their drugs that make you sicker. And then at a certain point, when enough people get sick, they're going to say, hey, there's this thing jumping around. And because there's this thing jumping around, we got to lock everybody down and take away your rights and basically, enforce crimes against humanity, human experimentation. Here, take this, right? And then we'll let you move around freely if you take this experimental drug thing, right? That just happened. These people are not playing around. So we don't have time to do this infighting thing where it's like, well, here's what I think about some ancient thing. It's like, fam, stop it. Why? Why does that matter? Let's get on board with, okay, sure. The same predatory elite people seem to be families that have been rocking for a long time. And they keep running the same plays. So there is benefit in looking at the sort of cyclical approaches. They keep running the same playbook. Well, let's look at their playbook. Now, you might look at the playbook this way. This other person looks at it this way. But let's compare notes. Let's focus more on what we agree on and what we don't agree on. Say, here's what I think. What do you think? That's what you think? Okay, cool. Now, even if you want to play your community versus his community or her community or whatever, even the people in the community should be smart enough to say, this person doesn't know everything. Let me see what this person is saying too. At the very least, treat it as a thought experiment. It doesn't have to be some kind of dogmatic thing just because you're a part of this community or that community, because isn't the community just trying to figure out what the hell is going on? Right? Common enemy, common threat, right? In a dualistic reality where there are predator and prey, right? Are we at the top of the food chain? Are the people that are the predatory elitist, are they even humans like us? That's something I'm willing to entertain. Maybe we're not even at the top of the food chain, right? So this stuff gets deep, right? It gets wild. I like the thought experiments. I like the deep woo-woo conspiratorial whatever. And I hate using that word, but I'm using that as a comical euphemism because the whole conspiracy theory notion is just nonsense anyway, because it's really just like there's a lot of coincidental crazy things that have happened, but if you talk about it, that's a conspiracy theory. Why? Because mainstream media sources didn't tell you it happened that way. So for you to think otherwise is you theorizing about some other idea, which is like, nah, just using logical deduction, just rationale to think, nah, maybe somebody's deceiving us. Maybe the same predatory people that control mainstream media are trying to box you into a certain way of thinking. The same people who are going to weaponize everything against you, especially your own vices, your own ego, your need for external gratification and validation, building communities and saying like my community has to rock with me or can't rock with them, or everything has to be a debate because of my position. And I don't know, fam. I used the analogy just the other day in the chat room. If we're working to build something together, so if we're trying to build a house, an apartment building, complex, whatever, for us to all live in, do we really want to make it a competition? Okay, we're building a structure, or we're building a foundation. Now we're doing the walls, we're doing the plumbing, we're doing insulation, we're doing a roof. I don't know the order, whatever. Somebody help me with that in the comments. Do we really want to compete? Do these guys over here building this part of the structure compete with the guys over on the northeast side? Are we going to compete? Hey, who can build there faster, right? Because the whole competition thing, I don't know. Maybe it breeds like certain levels of contempt. And I don't like the guys on the southwest side. So we got to kind of fight with them and see who can build this thing faster. Maybe that doesn't make for the best structure. Maybe that creates weaknesses in the integrity of the structure, because the same people trying to build the same structure to live in and function harmoniously, peacefully, are fighting against each other and making it some kind of like conflict and contemptuous kind of environment. Maybe that's not the best idea if you're trying to build something. So I don't know. That's where I'm seeing the whole thing, because again, I think we can all agree, press one if we agree, there's common enemies, common threats, predatory people who style themselves as elitist. and they're in the business of weaponizing everything against us. Like, you guys, I seriously want you guys to let me know what you think about that, because that's where I think, and just to treat it as a thought experiment. Because if we can all agree on that, then we can kind of agree some of these other discussions, especially when you get into like interpretations, opinions. You got to be able to say, well, that's just my opinion. Here's what I think. And being able to say, hey, I don't know. Right. And you can't expect to be able to force your idea on someone. Shit, even if you can objectively prove it, you still can't force it on someone, because something about them, some past experience, past trauma, ego, whatever, might make them not want to accept it. Now, I mean, that's a tricky game, and you can kind of sit back and be like, oh, okay. Because at the end of the day, does it make or break your life if that person accepts your concept or not? I don't know. Tricky game, right? But I mean, if we all agree, there's people going to use that against, if there's some kind of community, right? They're going to use that against you. I say, let's not worry about some of these details, and let's not get into the whole ego thing. Let's not even get into the whole stance where it's like, even the phrase, I'm teaching this thing. Because if you're teaching or building a community, you got to be able to build it around something that is more or less empirical evidence, objective reality, provable, perceivable. It's going to be very hard to teach on something that is more abstract and less tangible. So there's that. And even the concept of teaching implies that you're a teacher who's at the front of a class or the center of attention. And we know that some people have vices and can say, I like and enjoy and feel good about this status, the way I'm being exalted as this teacher. I say, just leave that and just say, nah, I'm just kicking some ideas. Just throwing out some ideas here. Just throwing out some ideas, and interact with someone else and be like, well, let me hear your ideas. And I mean, just to go into it with that thought process makes it to where it's kind of like de-escalates and diffuses a lot of tension, like out of the gate, right? Back to my notes. Let's see. Spiritual beings having a human experience, a shared objective reality, right? Subjective belief systems, your interpretations. Why not just use phrasings like my current understanding is, because it's research truth community, right? But my current understanding is, which is a statement. If you phrase it that way, it leaves the door open to say, well, it might change if I get further information, right? Just a thought, little thought experiment on maybe we diffuse some things with that. If we're going to talk some type of truth research community, so it doesn't get all fragmented and broken up. So, I mean, wild concepts like, well, wait a minute. Oh my God. I'll leave some of these things till later. I'll leave some of these things alone for now, but I'm kind of like, let's twist it into, let's focus on what we do agree on. I said this earlier, but just to kind of touch back on that. There's the whole what we think and we feel versus what we know. Conflicting ideas and beliefs, attachment to the beliefs, right? Because then you get the ego. Like, I believe this, I think this, now my ego's attached to this. And then if you say you don't believe that or think a different way, now I take that as a personal insult on me. And that's some kind of emotional attack. And I have some kind of actual like somatic body reaction to it. My heart rate goes up and I like see it as like violence on me. It's like, whoa, nah, chill. Dial it back. All I'm saying is, I don't see it like that. And here's the thing. If someone says, I don't see it like that, why do you see it? Okay, here's how I see it. Why do you see it that way? I hate to say it, but whoever has the information that's rooted in something that's more readily perceivable is going to have a slight advantage. And that's putting it lightly. So we got to look at that. So, and I say that relative to like researchers right now, there's a lot of big accounts and channels that I look at. There's people giving their thoughts on what's happened in the past. So something I'm super interested in right now is the idea of resets, right? That's a hot topic right now. It's so hot right now. The resets and this good stuff, right? Cyclical resets. And that's super interesting, right? Because then there's people, obviously, we'll talk directly about Jason Breshears, Archaics, who talks about these certain cyclical resets and talks about one that's going to come up in the next 16 years or so, 16 to 20 years, 16 and 20 years, if I'm getting that right. And please feel free to correct me if I'm getting that wrong. I'm open to the correction, to the criticism. Just do it respectfully. And even if not, I'm probably just going to laugh it off and be like, relax. The reset. Now, I think there's evidence, historical resets that are relatively objectively provable that points to the idea of these periodic resets. Then there's people who talk about this and then give other ideas, I think, about what they think about it that may be speculative. And that's fine. But the trick then becomes when you try to stand on that and maybe try to like force other, not really force, but say, here's how I think, and you got to see it the same way, or you can't be part of my community or my friends or whatever. I'm like, wait. So, and I'll straight up, I'm gonna straight up say it like this. Because I'm gonna end this soon, and then I'm gonna start this other stream. So I'm gonna name names specifically and call out, and not even call out, but shout out a lot of the accounts and channels that I really like. I've been listening to Bro Sanchez for years. I got great respect for this guy's work ethic, output, ideas. I can't even begin to count how many times I've listened to him say something and be like, whoa, I never thought of that. And that's one of my most favorite things in life is to be mind blown where it's like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. Somebody else I want to shout out is Subtle Infinity. Same thing. And me and him have met in person and did collab streams in person. Super duper sharp brother, super duper deep, mind blowing. I want to shout out Jaronism, Morgile, Glowbusters, R.I.P. Bob, that whole crew, David Weiss, Santos Bonacci, Michael Tessarian, David Icke. Oh man, so many people. But even J Dreamers, obviously Jason Brashears, man, Dr. Narco Longo. Been checking him out over the past year or so. Super interesting. Kurimeo, mind-blowing stuff. Dan Calloway, UB News. Man, so many names I could throw out that because I'm big on the whole YouTube thing where it's like I program myself listening to different people over the years. And I've operated in different sort of scenes and algorithms and whatnot and listened to different people, different information from people. But I've always been on this kind of what are we dealing with kind of vibe, right? This sort of truth or community kind of vibe. And then obviously as of 2020 came across names like, and I probably shouldn't even say it because he's hot right now in a different way, but Andrew Kaufman, Tom Cowan, Mark and Sam Bailey, Alpha Vedic. I'm just shouting out channels that I've taken so much from. Jennifer Daniels, people, influencers, accounts, channels that I've taken so much from. And when I say taken so much from, taken on so much inspiration, motivation, and taken action on gems that I've, taken from these people, and it's made my life better. And I want more of that. So the idea of like people going at it over certain things, ego, whatever it is, I'm like, come on, fam. Let's go into the deep stuff. Let's keep it rocking. I don't know. Maybe it's self-serving, but I know I'm not the only person who thinks of it this way. I'm not the only person who thinks of it this way for sure. I'm trying to think some other names. I mean, geez, there's so much. Years of just listening to people just rock out with you guys. Fire off some names. Who's some influencers kind of in that lane that you guys rock with? You guys will say a name that I forgot to bring up. But I'm just thinking of like people that I've listened to over the years, and I'm like, oh, I love this information. Mind Unveiled, right? Like that channel, super interesting stuff. I love the experience where somebody says something and I'm like, whoa, I never thought of that. That's crazy. Tell me more. That is like one of my most favorite things in life. Just so the whole idea of, well, here's how I think, here's how I teach it. And it's like, okay, cool. But I want to hear how they teach it too. And I don't need you guys to like fight over whatever. Don't even tell me what you teach. Just tell me what you think. Right? Because I'm going to sort it out for myself. So I don't need you to teach me. Give some information. Don't even put it in that context. Just give me your idea. Give me your thought experiment, right? And I'll run it as a thought experiment and I'll add it to all this other stuff I'm aggregating. Take the whole ego out of it. That's all I'm saying. So I want to end this because I want to set up for this other stream where I directly address my thoughts on the Bro Sanchez and archaic Jason Bashir's kind of kerfuffle, because I think it was a huge misunderstanding. And it's rooted in these kind of ideas where it's like, just present things as a thought experiment. Everything does not have to be some kind of conflict. It doesn't have to be debate. I think that's going to set us up for failure. Internal conflicts. You can't build a house or a building with a team of people while they're fighting amongst each other. It's only going to be used against us. It's going to be weaponized against us because I think we all agree that we have common enemies and common threats. If we understand / agree with that idea, then I think we see the weight behind what's going on here. Let me see. Kind of rugged stream, but I just want to trying to kind of come off the heart with it. And you guys can kind of see where I'm going with this channel and the energy of exactly why the phrasing thought experiment. Just chill. Run it as a thought experiment. I want to hear from Dr. Longo, Knocker Longo. I want to hear from whoever. You see what I'm saying? I want to hear from Michelle Gibson. Oh my God, I love her. All these people I'm naming, you should go sub to them. I want to hear more from Jay Dreamers. I want to see a collab again from Jay Dreamers and Jason. I want that. I want to see more collabs from Jason and Sanchez. I want that. I've enjoyed being on streams with them with their collabs, being able to ask them questions both. And at the same time, well, what do you think about this? Bro, what do you think about this? Jason, what do you think about this? Literally just the other day, asking them questions at the same time. That's crazy to me. Two guys who just come with like mind-blowing stuff, being able to like pick their brain right on the fly, like, damn, after listening to these guys literally for hours, right? I just want more of that. I want more of the thought experiments because I'm a sponge for new ideas and new information. And I'm big on the idea of freedom, sovereignty, autonomy. And I want to like do more self-improvement, self-refinement, and the idea of altering the habits of how I think and how I consume and ingest information. I love that, while at the same time bettering my body, aka AM1 lifestyle. Check that out. So we're hitting it from both sides. What's going on in your eyes and your ears from a content perspective, content consumption, and then from the physical mouth consumption, what are we consuming? Make our bodies better, make ourselves a holistic, better being, organism, however you want to look at it, all the way around. That's where I'm at with it. I'm gonna leave it at that. And then we're gonna get shut down and set up, and we're gonna talk directly about the Jason and Bro Sanchez situation. I'm gonna leave it at that.